For Cincinnati's Christian Radio, I'm Jessica Rice, and joining me today in studio are Jeff and Suzanne Coulter of JNS Ministries. They're a nonprofit ministry dedicated to witnessing the gospel of Jesus Christ. Primary focus is in ministering through Fishers of Kids, we'll talk about that a little bit later, and My Giving Seed Ministries, and authoring Christian books, and that is what we're going to be talking about today. Jeff and Suzanne have written a book, Until Death Do You Part, a story of faith, hope, and love. So Jeff and Suzanne, welcome. Thanks for joining us today.
Well, thank you very much for having us.
Thank you very much.
And as I said, you guys have a ministry, and we're going to talk a little bit more about the other aspects of that. But for the purpose of today's conversation, you guys have co-authored a book, and again, it's called Until Death Do You Part, a story of faith, hope, and love. And I would love, Jeff or Suzanne, whoever would like to start the conversation, let's talk about how you got to the part where you wrote the book. So we're going to definitely talk about the book today, but tell me a little bit of the background and how you came to a point where this book came to be.
In 2014, I was a backslidden Christian for over 22 years, and I had a near fatal crash and nearly died from that crash. Subsequently, still didn't get it in the hospital, and nearly died from multiple emboli. My heart had stopped. What I had seen at that point was my soul slipping away and virtually seeing the gates of hell is what I refer to it. A dark, lonely, black, endless void. And through my experience of that and returning from that second chance that God had given me, we decided that we wanted to write our testimony, a testimony of redemption and life after death. It goes into our marriage as backslidden Christians. It goes into a lot of aspects with regard to your life and marriage without Christ. But most of all, it just sums up the redemptive qualities of Christ and mercy and grace.
And Suzanne, Jeff, thank you for sharing about that and how, and this often is how it works. Sometimes we have to come to a really, really difficult place in our lives before we really understand what life would be like without Christ. And Jeff, it sounds like you kind of alluded to that a little bit. Suzanne, share with us a little bit. I know Jeff describes himself as a backslidden Christian. What, during the early years in your marriage, even before this book was written and before Jeff's accident, what was life like? Were you also in that same situation, or do you feel that you were kind of trying to drag Jeff along, if you will?
I did kind of drag Jeff along. I continued to pray for him. I often went to church by myself just to kind of keep my faith built up. I did listen to Christian music to kind of uplift myself in the car when I was driving, and just continued to pray. And you can read in the book where we did separate for a short time and then worked on our marriage after that. But it wasn't until several years later when he had the accident that we kind of rededicated to Christ fully and to each other pretty much in our marriage.
And what about that accident, Jeff, for you was so pivotal that it really made you take a hard look at, how you were living your life here, but then what eternity would be like for you?
That's exactly right. I was believing the lie that, I guess they call it an angel of light, where you believe that the lie, the deceit that everything will be okay, which goes into eternal security and also eternal salvation, which is a lie. You can walk away from it. Once saved, always saved is a false doctrine, and I started to believe that. Well, surely since I was a Christian for all those years, a very devout Christian, that I'll be okay. No, that was furthest from the truth. You can walk away from it because it talks about in the Bible where we're covered under an atonement, and once we walk away from that, you can deliberately sin and walk away from that following, that lifestyle of the mind of Christ. We're no longer covered under the atonement. We can walk away from it. What I saw changed my thinking, but the ironic part about it wasn't really the crash that did it. It really wasn't the crash. The embolism that I had primarily stopped my heart, and I arrogantly still didn't get it, and it took that. And also an interaction, if you will, or a exposure to the complete absence of the presence of God. Absolutely was not there. I wouldn't wish that on my worst enemy. I really wouldn't.
That was going on when he was fighting for his life from the embolisms. He had a really rough night. He struggled a lot. I was there with him, and that's kind of all explained in the book. But when he woke up, I knew what he had experienced, and then it was just full-fledged rededication. He was looking for a Christian station on the television in the hospital and just trying to get fed again, to get the Bible and to get reading. But kind of the catalyst for writing the book was I had always wanted to write a book. I'm a reader, so I wanted to write one growing up, but never had a really good subject. And I took so many notes in the hospital of what was going on with him physically from the doctors because I wanted to remember everything that happened. Once I looked back on all those notes, I said to him, well, we should write a book. And then from there it went, and there we were.
Well, and for our listeners just tuning in, and that's a great segue. Thank you for that, Suzanne. We are speaking with Jeff and Suzanne Coulter, authors of the book, Until Death Do You Part, A Story of Faith, Hope, and Love. And for those of you who've been listening to this conversation so far, man, there's a lot. And if we can focus in on those three things, a story of faith, hope, and love. I mean, how difficult, for both of you, especially I would think, Suzanne, as you said, that in those early years, you were trying to continue to maintain your walk with Christ while also, as you said, kind of trying to drag Jeff along. Mm-hmm. And how I can imagine, especially if that's an ongoing process, it can feel hopeless. You can feel like, things are never going to change here, and it's, probably difficult to, you've made that commitment of marriage to say, I'm going to be faithful here. I am going to have hope, and I am going to have love. Mm-hmm. So is some of that to do with how you chose the title of this book? How did that come to be?
Yeah, that was a big part of it because we knew that we wanted to kind of recommit our marriage and the vows that we had taken all those years ago. It's been 35 years now. And through the trials and the rocky roads, and I was always, I held out hope and faith and love, of course, that Jeff would be the man that I married all those years ago. I knew he was a better man than that. It's through circumstances, he got lost.
Yeah.
So
it's easy to get lost if you start living in the world.
Let's talk some more about this book. So we are actually going to be giving away copies of this book, just so for our listeners who are hearing right now and they're like, wow, that sounds like something I would love to read. I would love to hear that testimony. We are going to be giving away copies of Until Death Do You Part, A Story of Faith, Hope, and Love. But you can also pick up a copy of that book on the ministry website. So we're going to talk about that a little bit. But before we jump to those resources for our listeners, tell us what, after you've written this book, and you've shared this part of your testimony with others, for someone who picks up a copy of this book, what are you hoping that they will get out of it?
2 Corinthians 5:17 tells us that there is renewal in Christ, and that's what we base our ministry on, the redemption and mercy that is always there for the I'm speaking specifically for myself, the wretch, and we all are. We're all basically, to paraphrase another Christian, we're all on a sinking ship and Jesus is a lifeboat. We can either swim over to that lifeboat or sink. It's our choice. I primarily want to convey the message of mercy, God's mercy.
And Suzanne, if you have a different perspective than Jeff's, is there another type of message that you hope readers of this book will take away?
I do. It's written from his perspective and from my perspective. So there's the one who's lost and the one who's continually praying, and also the one that was severely injured and then the caregiver. Mm-hmm. I just want to kind of give people their perspective of both sides. And that's why we wrote it from two different perspectives, from his side and my side. Because we, as humans, see things different ways. And I just, even if it reaches one person, to be able to say, man, that's my situation, and for them to reach out for the help they need.
And so in the years that have passed since this accident and since you have written this book, obviously there's a ministry that exists. and you guys are continuing to share this testimony in many different mediums. You shared a little bit about a television broadcast. So like this testimony is far-reaching. So share with our listeners, kind of update us in these last few minutes that we have here, what the ministry is doing, and how you're hoping to impact not just this community, but others who seek out the ministry. What's the goal?
The goal is to share the witness of Christ, the cross. That's just as simple as it gets. We make no bones about it. We preach the word, teach the word, and we minister through our programs about the message of salvation, the gospel of the good news, period. And that's what we're here for, period. And whatever we get ourselves involved with in our ministry programs, the recovery that I went through with my depression and alcoholism, it's God's mercy it abounds in all of those aspects. So that's our primary goal, the message of the cross, period.
And I know that you're doing that through a couple of different ways. So Suzanne, if you can share with us the different ways, and for folks who are listening, the ministry website is jnsm.org.
Yes.
But Suzanne, share with us some other resources on the website.
Well, there's different programs that are on there. One specific one that he kind of came about was Fishers of Kids, but then I ran with it, so we get some state funding from the state of Ohio. And so Fishers of Kids gives fishing poles and tracks and Bibles to kids in the summer for free, totally free.
That's awesome.
And
That's an event at East Fork Lake in Ohio,
yes,
in Claremont County.
but in providing those poles to the kids, we then also witness to them. And so it reaches them and their parents, because the parents are there to pick up the stuff. And also with my Giving Seed, just providing what we can in vouchers, in
Food vouchers and gift cards.
gift cards for needs of people.
And as you have said, the basis for all of this is so that people can come to salvation in Christ.
Yes.
Yes.
Children,
Yes.
adults, we are all in need of salvation. So,
Yes.
again, we're kind of wrapping up here, so I want to make sure that we share the website and other resources again. So, Jeff or Suzanne, if you will, share that ministry website and where folks can find more about your ministry and where they can get their copy of Until Death Do You Part.
JNSM.org is the abbreviated website. JNS Ministries. If we've been around long enough, and where you can go to directly to the books page from the menu. JNSM.org will take you to everything, all our programs and books, which are available on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and also Smashwords.
And then you have, I believe you said some videos. Is that a YouTube channel as well?
Primarily focusing on Rumble and
Gotcha.
also YouTube, but Rumble and BitChute. Rumble is our primary focus, just by virtue of the nature of our ministry.
And folks can find you guys either by searching on Rumble or I would assume through the website as well.
Website. We have a media page. There's a resource for a bunch of our media videos, our ministry, our messages rather, are all on there. Everything is on the website.
Jeff and Suzanne Coulter, founders of JNS Ministries and authors of the book Until Death Do You Part, A Story of Faith, Hope, and Love. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm Jessica Rice, and you're listening to Cincinnati's Christian Radio.